Okay, there's going to be a list of my top 10 favorite promotions in pro wrestling history. At number 10, I'm actually going to go with Chikara. I think the main selling point for Chikara for me has been King of Trios. Without a doubt, the King of Trios tournament from 2009 to 2011 were all, must-see tournaments. It just offered a lot of diversity, a lot of variety, wrestlers from all over the world. All the teams were very nicely structured. They all had their own identity. I would say that the King of Trios tournament just amazing stuff. Some of the best pro wrestling tournaments I think we've ever seen. Also, I think Chikara just had some amazing promos, some really unique storylines as well. The gimmicks were all created by Mike Quackenbush. I felt like he made the most out of his homegrown talent, the most out of his students, and the guys that necessarily couldn't become stars anywhere else were really presented very unique gimmicks in Chikara. It's kind of like the second stage of ECW, where people talk about ECW like these guys wouldn't be stars anywhere else but in ECW. Well, kind of after the year 2002, you could say the same thing about Chikara after ECW went bankrupt. So I could talk on and on about Chikara, but when you think of Chikara, you think of plot-driven storylines. Storylines that keep you engaged. The main difference about Chikara, they have an off season. They do have an off season. They run seasons from, I believe, January through maybe early November, and then maybe they'll take off for December. Some years they actually ran through December as well, but it's a seasonal, episodic wrestling show. So I think that's what made it unique. They've kind of lost a lot of steam the last couple of years. The last Chikara show I went to, I just didn't like it at all. But I went to some amazing Chikara shows, particularly the Minami Toyota Chikara show in Brooklyn, and that was probably the most fun I've ever had at a wrestling show. So definitely, I'll put Chikara at number 10. Number 9, I'm going to go with World Championship Wrestling, WCW. If you want to, mix it in with the NWA, the old school NWA, that's fine. It's WCW for me was always hit or miss. I was never a huge WCW fan, even going back to 1991 when I loved the early WWF days. I always found them to be kind of Bush League. Just was never a fan of the main event scene of Hogan, Lex Luger, the NWO. Even the Sting and Flair stuff. It wasn't really my cup of tea, even though I can appreciate it now. I think some of the best stuff from WCW was the cruiserweights, Rey Mysterio, Ultimo Dragon, Chavo Guerrero, obviously Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, Mysterio, Guerrero, Halloween Havoc. That's the stuff about WCW that I really love, looking back at some of the old footage. But, to me, like the crowds, for the most part, kind of sucked. I hated when they used to go out there and do the Hog Wild or Road Wild shows. I felt like some of those fans knew nothing about pro wrestling. It's a mixed bag. I thought the main event scene kind of was crappy at times. I do like the fact that they incorporated, Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman, NBA players, into the main event. I found some of that stuff to be intriguing, even though the wrestling wasn't great. But WCW to me, it always seemed like a Bush League promotion compared to the WWE, but give them credit for a while there. They definitely had a lot of talent and a lot of unique storylines with the NWO, but I think oversaturation is what probably hurt the WCW product the most. At number 8, I'm going to go with Dragon Gate. Dragon Gate is a pro wrestling promotion in Japan, if some of you guys don't know. They eventually created Dragon Gate USA, where they will run shows about once a season in the United States with a mixture of Japanese and American talent. But Dragon Gate USA is totally different than Dragon Gate in Japan. I just thought Ring of Honor did a great job of introducing us to these Dragon Gate style wrestlers. We've never seen anything like it. Even if you have seen regular Japanese wrestling, the Dragon Gate guys offered a level of athleticism and fluidity that you've never seen in a wrestling ring. I still think Masato Yoshino is probably the greatest athlete I've ever seen in wrestling. You got guys like CIMA, probably the captain. I'll say he's like the RZA of the Dragon Gate promotion. These introduced us to guys like Shingo, who incorporated a combination of the athletic Dragon Gate style and the strong style. Dragon Kid. And then Akira Tozawa, probably one of my favorite wrestlers ever, was born in the Dragon Gate promotion. They just had so many diverse styles and so much athleticism. The Dragon Gate 6-man match that took place in Ring of Honor was unlike anything you have ever seen before in pro wrestling history. Still, by far, probably the most spectacular display of athleticism ever in professional wrestling. Number 7, I'm going to go with Total Nonstop Action. TNA. TNA was in their prime in 2005. As a lot of you guys know, I think TNA in 2005 went on a pay-per-view run. One of the best pay-per-view runs in the history of the United States. From Final Resolution of that year all the way to Turning Point, you saw the X Division guys shine. Guys like AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe. You saw Christopher Daniels elevate the X Division title and made it more important than the NWA title at the time. You saw a combination of guys like Rhino and Raven, old guys that have gotten fired from WWE, were ex-ECW stars. It kind of reinvent themselves in TNA. Guys like Sabu as well. So you just had around that time, you just had a lot of great gems. And then all of a sudden, Kurt Angle came in, and the stuff he did with Samoa Joe was. I felt like it took the pro wrestling industry by storm in 2006. And for a promotion like TNA to get the kind of buy rate that they did for Genesis, 60,000 buys, it's not bad for a promotion that was, just running weekly pay-per-views a few years ago at the time. So, TNA definitely introduced us to a lot of guys that would have been stars in WCW. Ran by Jeff Jarrett. Eventually, Dixie Carter took it over, and, Panda Energy started funding it. And then, you got some not so good stuff with, I think hiring Vince Russo was a mistake. Bringing in Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff to kind of, make them more competitive with the WWE. And a lot of times you've heard this phrase time and time again. The worst thing TNA started to do was to try to outdo the WWE. But for a while there, I felt like they kind of, I did think they grabbed a few mainstream fans, particularly with the Knockouts division. I think the Knockouts division, in retrospect, while it wasn't my cup of tea, I could see how it probably brought in a few new fans. Girls like Angelina Love, Gail Kim. I think they probably have a lot to be proud of at that particular time as well. But the wrestling quality, it just didn't keep up. They weren't able to maintain the talent base that they had. And when you consider how much talent that they had around 2007, when you had guys like Austin Aries, Low Key, guys that weren't used particularly well, that were some of the best wrestlers the United States has ever seen, it's quite disappointing to see what TNA had become. I think they're still around today. I'm not even sure what television show they're on. I think they're on Pop. And you see... one of the bright spots about TNA today, it seems like Matt Hardy kind of rejuvenated his career, finding a new gimmick. But aside from that, I just have no interest whatsoever in today's product. But to me, the golden era of TNA will always be 2005 to 2007. Even though the booking was crappy in 2007, I'm still fond of the product in 2007 because you never really seen talent like that under one promotion. Ever. I mean, the talent was just so good. Definitely superior to the WWE's talent in 2007, without a doubt. Number 6, I'm going to go with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So New Japan, they obviously this promotion's got such history. A lot of the history I'm not even that familiar with, but I could talk about going back to the Super J Cup 1994. Chris Benoit winning that Super J Cup was definitely a hell of a tournament for me. I think the Super J Cup, the Best of America Super Juniors tournament, the G1 Climax tournament, they've just always been known for putting on quality pro wrestling tournaments. Strong style, the strong style was huge in Japan. And obviously it was guys like Shinsuke Nakamura, guys like Tanahashi really put this promotion over the top. Going into the 2010s. Wrestle Kingdom became kind of like the second biggest show after WrestleMania. So definitely New Japan Pro Wrestling really took off with the G1 Climax tournament around 2013, 2014. Some people would hail these as some of the best pro wrestling shows ever. To me, I was really into New Japan around maybe 2011, 2012. That's when I was like addicted to it. At the time, I was able to burn every show on my laptop and watch it on DVD. Since then, I haven't been able to keep up with it through New Japan World for financial reasons. But still, I mean, this promotion has done such a wonderful job over the last couple of years. They've definitely been If you want to see quality pro wrestling, I would say they've definitely been the place to be since probably 2012, 2013, without a doubt. Number 5, I'm going to go with Pro Wrestling Noah. I don't have All Japan Pro Wrestling on my list because All Japan really wasn't, but besides the Kawada, Misawa, and Kobashi stuff, I haven't really been that engaged from them. The guys that made All Japan what it was, eventually they transitioned to Pro Wrestling Noah, and that was really the promotion that I, have followed or really made an effort to dig up and research thoroughly. So that's why I would go with Noah over All Japan. Pro Wrestling Noah, obviously the Misawa Kobashi stuff really got the promotion off the ground. And then, they introduced us to guys like Kenta and Naomichi Marufuji, Morishima, guys that made it, came over to Ring of Honor and made a name for themselves in Ring of Honor. Eventually, you wanted to keep up with them in Pro Wrestling Noah. And, just the tag matches that Marufuji and Kenta had in Noah and then eventually you got to see guys like Kota Ibushi, Taishi Ishimori. I just feel like Pro Wrestling Noah, to me, was, produced some of the greatest gems in Japanese wrestling history since 2000. And I would recommend anyone to check out the top 25 matches in Pro Wrestling Noah history. And obviously Kent is probably one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. So, and his home base is Pro Wrestling Noah. Number 4, I'm going to go with Extreme Championship Wrestling, ECW. I didn't watch ECW as it unfolded, but, it seems to me like guys that were into it, guys that followed it during the 90s, it was really addicting to the point where you would kind of dream and daydream and wonder and keep on thinking about how storylines were going to unfold. I think the selling point for me was definitely the atmosphere. The atmosphere of ECW it was unlike anything else. When you go back and watch the old footage, on top of that, you just have variety. When I think of ECW, I don't think of guys hitting each other with pans or knives or forks. Some people have described it as garbage wrestling. Even Stone Cold did during one of his promos. But to me, ECW is always going to be. When I think of ECW, I think of guys like Taz, Sabu, heavyweights, a combination of Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, guys that made a name for themselves in Japan, and now they're in ECW making a name for themselves here. Rey Mysterio, Chavo Guerrero, just styles that you had never seen before. From other countries, even AAA, Eddie Guerrero, guys that made a name for themselves in other countries. When we finally got to see it for the first time in the United States in ECW. So definitely. Also, let me talk about the Rob Van Dam, Jerry Lynn matches. Those are some of my favorite matches of all time, and they took place in ECW. And this is where RVD, made a name for himself. One of my favorite wrestlers of all time. So definitely, ECW, masterminded by Paul Heyman. Some people probably say the heart and soul of ECW was Tommy Dreamer as well. So ECW just means so much to so many different people. So that will be my number 4 promotion. My number 3 promotion is Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. The selling point for Pro Wrestling Guerrilla for me is dream matches, super cards. Every show they seem to manage to put together a super card to get people interested. The tournaments too. The DDT4 tournament is an amazing tag team wrestling tournament. All-Star Weekend has produced some of the best super cards in pro wrestling history on the independent wrestling scene. And then obviously the mother of all tournaments to me is the Battle of Los Angeles. The Battle of Los Angeles is a tournament featuring the best wrestlers on the independent wrestling scene. If you want to check out a great Battle of Los Angeles, check out all of them. But to me, 2007 is the one to check out. Number 2, I'm going to go with World Wrestling Entertainment, the WWE. Obviously, the WWE has so many superstars that they've created. Guys like Triple H, Bret Hart, Kurt Angle, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior. They've created so many larger-than-life characters that mean so much to so many people. You guys know why we love the WWE. I mean, the WWE is pro wrestling. You know, it's the promotion I talk about the most. It's the promotion I've watched the most. But why do I have it at number 2? That's the main question. Having it at number 2 is because there's just been so many times where I've just been disgusted by the company, by, you know, just trying to push the wrong people, trying to appeal to different demographics, feeling the pressures from the sponsors. You know, a lot of stuff has really turned me off from WWE. So it's just caused me such frustration, such agony that I'd have to put it at number 2, even though the WWE has given us some of the most memorable and some of the best moments, you know, you probably ever experienced as a fan of any form of entertainment. So at number 1, I'm going to go with Ring of Honor, ROH. To me, Ring of Honor just it just gives you what you want as gave me what I wanted as a pro wrestling fan. Unlike PWG, the Ring of Honor was always a storyline driven format. It always had a storyline driven format. Each and every show would would feel similar to the next in terms of storylines. So there's this misconception that they never had storylines or don't have storylines. That's not really true. I love the Code of Honor. I thought the Code of Honor was definitely something that made them different. I think probably the thing that the company could be most proud of is the Ring of Honor World Title. It's just, even today, it still seems like it never really lost its credibility. I felt like every time the title changed, it always felt like a huge deal. And the title never really hot potato to the point where it just never meant nothing. I think that's one of the things that has really hurt the WWE over the last 10 years, particularly with the Money in the Bank thing. I think Money in the Bank initially was a great idea, but I think over the next couple years, it really was really the thing that really hurt a lot of the title wins and made them seem less credible. So definitely that. And, guys were just able to go out there and cut promos from the heart, and at the same time they were able to wrestle the way they wanted to wrestle. I think probably Austin Aries and Bryan Danielson said it best, that the Ring of Honor World Title represented wrestling freedom. And so to me, from 2004 to probably about 2008, nothing ever could touch the Ring of Honor promotion. The wrestling is so good. It was so good at that time that it just made you addicted to pro wrestling. So definitely, guys, if I were you guys, go out there and try to hunt down some of that old Ring of Honor footage. And who knows, there's actually a Ring of Honor pay-per-view tonight. Was it All-Star Extravaganza 7 or All-Star Extravaganza 8? We have Ladder War 6 tonight. Christopher Daniels just cut one of the best promos of the year, probably the promo of his career. So definitely check it out. Hopefully I'll get a chance to see it somewhere down the road, and hopefully I'll start reviewing some more. Bola's definitely coming. I guarantee you guys I'm going to review Bola as soon as it comes out on DVD. And hopefully I could go back and see some of the best Ring of Honor shows from last year as well and review them. So Ring of Honor, I would say, definitely my favorite promotion of all time.